Matt Hoffman.
Mr. Hunt.
Yeah, good day, sir.
Yes, sir. Good day to you.
Yeah. Tell everybody where you're from.
Oh, let's see. My origin was born April 11th, 1986, in a small town called Lincolnton, North Carolina. It's about 45 minutes from Charlotte, so it's kind of a little bit south of Hickory. So right around in that general, the foothills, essentially.
Yeah.
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 I was born there.
Close enough to Charlotte that was part of your.
No, I was super young, so we moved to Clinton, which is kind of between here and there, here in Wilmington and Lincoln, closer to Wilmington. But we moved to Clinton. I remember having my 7th birthday party in Clinton. Much prior to that, I have a few childhood memories, but not a bunch. It's weird. I've dug for this and I've looked through. My family has a big thing where every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, we play old home videos. They've all been digitized. It's really cool. Me and my sisters have obviously seen them a million times. So have our fiancés and our spouses and all that good stuff. I know they're all spouses now, but we still watch them all the time for our kids.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So they'll be playing the home videos and that kind of thing, and I'll see what pops used to tape and stuff like that, and I can't remember it very well. I remember snippets, but my memory's kind of very, very vague past there. But then, like I said, I remember my 7th birthday in Clinton, and then some things along the way. But I had a couple of near-death experiences prior to 7 years old, so I remember those very much. So.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah, so I remember those for sure, just those instances, but not much prior to that. Both sets of grandparents lived. My father's mother and father, and then my mother's father and mother lived in Lincoln. So going back to Lincoln was a big thing. We used to do that all the time. At minimum, I'd say probably once a month. It's about a 250-mile trip. They pile all those kids up, and we go spend a weekend or a couple days or something like that in Lincoln and see all them and that kind of stuff. And we still, Mom and Dad used to pack up all of Christmas. This is back way before Amazon and all that kind of stuff where you could choose where your stuff was. So somehow they managed to pack up all of our Christmas in a vehicle that made its way to Lincoln without us knowing it. And then we would have Christmas there with the grandparents.
Is this a National Lampoon's like station wagon situation?
Yes.
Nice. That's outstanding.
Very much. Very much.
Is that where the near-death experience comes in?
What's that, in the vehicle?
Yeah.
No. None of mine involved the vehicle.
Oh, okay.
At all. No.
I have to hear at least one.
All right. So I was real big into cowboys and Indians.
Mm-hmm.
I think most kids who spent 99.9% of their time outside, which is how I was brought up. There was no video games. There was none of that stuff. It was outside.
There's not much reason to be inside.
We lived outside. So naturally, I was real big into cowboys and Indians. The little bit of TV I did get to watch was old school westerns, that kind of stuff. Cowboys and Indians were my thing.
Yeah.
So, sure. And then I don't want to jump ahead, but the movie Robin Hood came out and changed all that. But
right. Yeah.
prior to that, it was all cowboys and Indians, and I would play both roles, both cowboy and Indian. And what was pretty pervasive for that time of day, how did they execute people?
Shot him?
Some, but yes. If you were tried in a court of law and sentenced to death, how did that happen?
Oh, yeah, hanging.
Yes, hanging. So I was being an Indian being hung.
Oh, no.
And I had my sister's jump rope tied off to a tree limb above me, and then I climbed up on the tree a little bit and slipped and was hanging in the front yard by my neck and a jump rope.
Who came? Who helped you?
My sisters, they kind of saw it, but didn't really think. I mean, I'm sure they knew it was a problem, obviously, but so they came over. One of my sisters grabbed me by the legs and picked my legs up, and I was able to get the rope out from around my neck. Yeah. At the same time, my mother somehow saw all this out of the kitchen window. She was inside cooking dinner or doing something. So she saw all of it out of the kitchen window and became the fastest woman alive. And she was out there incredibly fast. I don't know how. She ended up falling down the steps. to fall down the steps, busted her leg all up. But she was out there just like that. So had I been by myself, I would have died for sure.
Yeah, you'd still be swinging.
Yeah, absolutely. Till somebody saw me or Pops came home or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was one. Then that was on a Saturday. The next day we had church, and I remember going to church and everybody wanting to know what this giant burn was around my neck because I had a giant rope burn all the way around my neck.
Yeah.
And it was, I very much remember that.
Dude, that's a big deal.
Yeah, my mom whipped my tail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After making sure you were alive.
The two that I can recall very well, my mama ended up beating my tail after both of them. Here I am, almost dying.
Yeah.
First thing mama does is beat the hell out of me. So,
Man.
but yeah, so it was a teachable moment.
Yeah.
So she made sure to execute that properly.
That's legit. That's
Yeah.
like a near-death experience.
For sure.
Did your brain process how close it was, or was it just a problem?
It was just a problem. Looking back, it was, I mean, I don't know how long I sat there and hung,
Right.
but I remember it. I mean, I remember putting the rope around my neck, and I remember slipping off the side of the tree, and then I remember hanging there, swinging back and forth, and then my sister coming picking my legs up. So I remember all of it. But then after that, after Mama beat my tail, it just kind of, I don't remember much after that, except church the next day.
Yeah. I'm almost scared to ask, but what was the other one?
This was a pool incident. My aunt had a pool, and we used to always go over there, swim, all that good stuff. The rule was for me back then is I couldn't leave the shallow end, but I had this thing where I would always stand on the hill, the hill around the edge of the pool, and walk all the way around it. Because all of my sisters and all that, they were all, so I slipped off of that hill one day, and there was nobody else in the pool. Just Mom was outside, and I was outside. She was doing whatever she was doing, and I slipped off, and bloop,
And you went.
and I went. So she came, pulled me out. As soon as she pulled me out of the pool, beat my tail, and that's it. And that's where I began my love for water.
Yeah, so you could swim like a rock at the time.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Goodness gracious.
So that's two. I feel like there's more, but as you get older, it's just kind of a laughable moment versus a serious thing. I feel sure there's more.
Yeah. Goodness gracious. So so far we've heard about your mom beating you twice.
Yes.
Did she do anything else for you other than whip
Other
your
than
ass?
beat me?
Yeah.
No. She strictly just beat me.
Okay.
No. The family dynamic, as far as my mother and father, when it came to raising 4 kids, all 2 years apart. I have 3 older sisters. We're all almost exactly 2 years apart. I think my mom and dad had a problem. But so Dad worked. Dad went to school, graduated from Chapel Hill with a pharmacy degree. That's what he went to school to be, was a pharmacist. He did that for a little while, and then if I'm recalling correctly, he went back to school and got some kind of other degree in business. So he was the assistant administrator at the hospital in Lincoln, Lincoln County Hospital. And Mother went to Chapel Hill, graduated from Chapel Hill, and she was a nurse. Been a nurse her whole career. So they're both somewhat in the medical side of things.
Sure.
Dad worked 8 to 5, and then nurses, we all know where's the money at. Weekend nights.
Yeah.
So Mom worked weekend nights. My whole upbringing was homeschooled. We were all homeschooled. My sisters all the way up into high school, and myself to middle school. So it was a lot of time spent with one or the other.
Sure.
Very rarely together. And I can appreciate that a little bit, but it was, it was definitely Mom had her ways of doing things, and then Dad had his way of doing things. So it was an interesting way to be brought up. Mom was, of course, very loving. If you got in trouble around Mama, she didn't really discipline you per se. She made you wait until Daddy got home, and then Daddy got to discipline you.
Pass the buck.
That's right.
Yeah.
In hindsight now, being a parent myself, I would deem it as passing the buck, but Mama didn't want to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, it makes sense. Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, and then, but Dad, he was the strict. That's the way his father was. It was very much the strict. This is the way we do it. Anything deviating from that is wrong, and that's it.
Yeah.
So
4 kids. You were what number?
I'm the baby.
All right.
Baby and the only boy.
That's right. You said we shared that.
Yep,
Yeah.
the baby and the only boy.
Man, that whole discipline thing reminds me. My dad used to. he would undo the belt and pull it out really
The
fast.
famous sound.
Yes, man, that sound was power.
Sure.
You knew things were going south.
And the thing was with my dad, best that I can remember is there might have been one or two times that I was spanked with a belt. I talk about this at family events and stuff all the time. We still reflect on it, but we had this thing called the rod.
Oh no.
And what it was it was a section of a microphone pole. So it was a very, I guess what you could equate to now is kind of like PVC pipe, super rigid, no flex, no nothing. And it was a rod, and that's what we got our spankings with. Not a belt, not a hand, not any other object. That was what that particular thing was for. And it lived on top of the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Yep. And when it was your turn to be disciplined or whatever, you had to go retrieve it.
Oh no.
I can't tell you how many times I accidentally pushed it behind the refrigerator
Yeah.
in effort to get it, but it never worked.
No.
It
Yeah,
never
it's
worked.
funny. Yeah.
It never worked.
Oh my gosh. No, I never had to go retrieve anything. That belt was
That belt was the utensil.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no
I don't
hands.
maybe once or twice, but it was pretty much a ritual thing, a very ritualistic thing. The rod stood for something.
Yeah.
So
So a microphone
yes,
rod.
the section of a microphone pole, like a little kid's microphone pole, was yellow. Never forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, here we are full circle.
Sure, back on the mics.
Yeah. Man, that's wild. So, Dad
Dad.
working at the hospital.
That's right. We lived on a farm, so we had animals. We had 2 horses, sheep, goat, dogs, all kinds of stuff like that. So essentially, I grew up in the farm life, not as people on the East Coast think of farms with chickens and turkeys and hogs and all that good stuff, but like legit, like gardens, that kind of thing. So there was always something. There was always chores. We had chores. There was always chores. Horse stalls, feeding animals. Hurricane Hugo came
Yeah.
through sometime back around there. So on the property that my mom and dad owned, there was all kinds of deadfall in the woods and stuff like that. So it was constantly cutting trees, dragging brush. That was chores for us.
Yeah. So you just had these predetermined. Was it like a list you went and checked off, or you just knew I got to clean the horse stall, I got to clean this?
Yes, basically it was just it was you did what Dad asked, and Dad asked the same thing every day. So there was no need to write anything.
It got easy.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if you chose not to do it, then the rod.
Yeah. Man. So you're 7 and you moved to Clinton.
Yeah, when we moved to Clinton, my dad he went from assistant administrator in Lincolnton to administrator in Clinton, if my memory serves me correct. So he just took another job in a different hospital. My mom and dad had prior history in Clinton, where 2 of my 3 sisters were born. So they had some prior history in Clinton. Hospital calls him, wants him to come work for them. So they move. My mom and dad are very, very traditional. And Pop says, we're moving. Mom says, okay. There was no, she didn't want to. She loved our house that we were in. She loved being around the grandparents, and then moving to Clinton, where she had no assistance with the kids, no help with the kids, no grandparents to take them to, no grandparents coming over, just basically uprooting her whole childhood and then moving it.
Yeah.
So, but there was never, I've never been informed that there was any questioning. It was just, okay.
Yeah.
So whether she liked it or didn't like it, it was just, that's what they did. So yeah, they moved to Clinton. Mom obviously gets a job at the hospital, no issues with that. And it was a little bit different. I always had my sisters to play with growing up. I remember having friends, but we were part of the 4-H community, so a lot of homeschool kids all get together, play rec sports, do stuff like that. So I had friends, but it was far different from the idea of a public school friends as far as that goes. So, and then me and my sisters were always super close. I mean, we still are.
Yeah.
Very close. So we were always playing together. I had the sister who's closest in age to me, Natalie. She played Cowboys and Indians with me. She built forts with me, all kinds of stuff like that. So we were always super close. I always had a playmate, somebody to play with. I played dress up with them, played house with them, played baby dolls with them. So, I mean, it was, we were super close.
Yeah. So no school sports.
No school sports.
Was homeschool all the way through?
Homeschool was for my sisters was all the way to high school, and then mine was in middle school. Because if you think about the age spread there, it would have been just me at home.
Yeah.
So I guess Mama thought, and she offered. I mean, it was not a push thing for me to go, but she offered. You can go. You can go to school with your sisters in the middle school, or you can stay home and be homeschooled. But that took all my playmates away. I mean, it took my sisters away. I didn't have nothing to do. I mean, when you're homeschooled and you can focus on things, and your mom's your teacher, there's 2.5 hours of schoolwork, and then the rest of the day is yours. I mean, so and there would be nothing to do. So I chose to go to school. So we all rode together in the same vehicle when my sister got a license, and yeah, I mean, we just.
How about that? So it seems like it would be a big change, like doing the homeschool life and then suddenly public school and behavior stuff. And
it wasn't. We didn't go to public school. We went to a private school. So my classroom was small, and it was the same. It was the same set of people. So it was. I forget how many was in my class when I started in 6th grade. Maybe 15 to 20, maybe. So it was super small, and it was the same way for my sisters. Their classes were all that size, very small. So it was a big difference. I never had to worry about, bullying or anything like that other than my sisters picking on me. And so it was definitely a bit of a culture shock, a difference. So, but, hindsight, it was also very good for me. So,
yeah. What was your graduating class size?
For them, I moved schools. When I went to high school, I went to a different high school than what 2 of my sisters graduated from.
What size was the high school?
Clinton High. So it was big. My class went from 15 to 20 to between 250 and 300.
Yeah.
So big difference. Yeah, big difference.
How about that?
That wasn't all that much, other than all the people. I guess the experience wasn't all that much. It wasn't all that much different. Obviously the teachers weren't as personal.
Sure.
So. You could figure out that you could get away with a lot more things in public school than you could in a private school. So, that's when that kind of rebellious kind of envelope came, to the forefront of my mind and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, prior to that, it was strict. There was no deviation from the line. It was, This is the line. This is what you walk.
How did you finance your rebellion?
How did I finance?
Yeah. What was that first job?
Oh man, let's see. My first real job. Let's see. I'm trying to think. I'm having a problem in my brain picking out which one came first, but they were right there about the same time period. I either started at Domino's Pizza because my mom knew the manager's mom or something like that. She got me slid in there. This is all, I'm about 15 years old. Mm-hmm. So she either got me slid in there it was either Domino's first and Turkey Farm second, or it was Turkey Farm then Domino's. I want to say it was in the latter order. So Domino's, and I figured out that was not for me. I was not going to be answering phones and attempting to make a pizza. Plus, I was terrible at it. So
I can't see you making pizza.
Yeah, I was terrible at it. So then it was Turkey Farm. Then I got my license, and I still worked at the Turkey Farm, but I got a job at Piggly Wiggly bagging groceries. So that was fun. I did that for a while.
Yeah, working at the pig.
Yeah, man, bagging groceries. That was the high school dream. You go work your 3 hours, you make your money, and
buy paintballs.
That's it.
Yeah.
Whatever you wanted to do.
How long did that paintball era?
Oh man, see, probably hot and heavy. Probably quit when I graduated high school, but it still came around even when I was in county fire. When I first started in county fire, we used to get a big group and go play. We used to play behind Captain Padgett's house all the time, at least once a week. So
yeah,
but heavily where I was playing tournament ball and stuff like that. After high school, probably just when the real world came about. So
yeah, man. So where does the fire department fit in? Like, did you end up getting a job, or you did some volunteering? What was the how did that transition happen?
I never volunteered. When I was in high school, there was one guy that I can recall. There was one guy whose father was on the fire department. He was in the fire department, so he worked part-time with the Clinton Fire Department. And we were somewhat close, not super tight, but his family owned farms. I worked on farms, so it's kind of went hand in hand. The farmers' communities kind of, you know people.
Sure.
the farmers are always helping each other out, that kind of stuff, whether it be, I send my help to your farm to help you do things when it's crunch time for you and vice versa. So, we knew each other through there as well as through high school. He was a real popular kid in high school. So, I mean, you knew those people. Whether or not you socialized with them, you still knew them. You knew who the popular people were.
Right.
So, and he was older than me by a couple of years. So I think he was in my sister's class. And then still, the home life, hanging out with all my sister's friends and stuff like that. I mean, that was still a thing. I always hung out with older people. When I grew up with older people, I always hung out with older people. So there's some meat to my story in between when I found the fire service and kind of that period from the farm to when I got into the fire service. There's some meat in there. At Pig League, I met a girl. She worked in the photo lab. She was the catch of the store, buddy. Let me tell you what.
I like what I'm hearing so far.
Yeah, she was the catch of the store. Nobody walked past the photo. This is back when they still developed photos.
Yeah.
So, so she worked in the photo lab, and nobody walked past the photo lab without turning to look at her.
Right.
Yeah, she was a fine thing. I grown up with girls. Girls were no problem to me, so I just talked to her.
Yeah.
So turned out we started dating. Cool. I was hot stuff. Had the hot chick at Piggly Wiggly. That relationship lasted a total of 7.5 years. So there was some job change. I moved out. Didn't move in with her, but she'll play a big part into my story as we get further. But so just pick that up and bring it with you.
Yeah.
She'll play a part. But the kind of the skipping around trying to find what I liked. As I hung around more with farms and hung around more with farmers, it kind of started developing this clique of friends. The farm owners' kids, the other guys who worked on farms. It was just kind of it was your typical country boy kind of living. You had your clique. We were all like-minded, all kind of the same. Enjoyed doing the same things, hunting, fishing. That's what we grew up doing, so we just clicked.
Yeah.
A lot of them were firemen. So I'd known about that side of things, but I hadn't dabbled in it by any means. So graduated high school, get done with high school. What am I going to do now? College was not an option. I was not going to college by no means. I barely skated through high school.
Right.
I did not like school at all. I was not a great student by any means. Very much did not hold the standard to my sisters. So they were all wonderful, great students, and I was the polar opposite. Did not like it. So what am I going to do? Well, then my brother-in-law, who married my older sister, he was inheriting and was, kind of being groomed to take over his family business, which was a gas company. So he was pretty much day-to-day doing the managing the operations of the gas company on a day-to-day. This is propane. So I asked him, I was like, you need any help or anything like that? So he was obviously, sure, good, you can come ride on a service truck. One of my guys, they always need an extra set of hands. You can come work here. So I went and did that. I did that for 6 months and got more and more as my clique began to come a kind of, we stayed close, and hearing stories about firehouse stuff and this kind of thing. I don't know, just something happened one day, and I was leaving my brother-in-law's store, and I called my buddy, and I was like, what do I got to do to be a fireman? I said, it sounds super cool. What do I have to do? Now, I had never volunteered. Anything. I don't even know that I had ever set foot in a firehouse, period.
Right.
So I said, what do I need to do to be a fireman? So he kind of told me the process of what it would take for me to get on a Clinton. Go fill out an application. You got to run through an agility test, blah, 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 interview, all that good jazz. We don't have any full-time stuff. It's all, so they were a combination department. So it was part-time and full-time, and the off-duty people served as volunteers.
Sure.
So it was, a rather big department for a small city, for a small town thing. So there was no full-time positions open. Those positions were filled, and, looking back in it, positions were filled for as long as those human beings were alive.
Yeah,
So
right. Not a lot of turnover.
No, not a lot of turnover at all. So
let me ask, I think everybody wants to know, what part of that 7-year, where are we, like you're doing the application for Clinton,
mm-hmm.
where is that in that 7-year relationship?
So we're still dating.
Okay.
Still dating for sure. Right on through all this. I mean, she was there. She was younger than I was. So 1 year that I was out of high school when I graduated, she was in her senior year. So
Okay.
she was a year behind me. So, uh, I was out into the real world, and then she was still in high school. So there was a year difference between us. She was actually the homecoming queen. She was in a different school. She wasn't in a hometown. She lived in another city in Sampson County. She was the homecoming queen. Once again, here I am, hot stuff again. I got the homecoming queen. So that was pretty cool. Myself and her parents were really close. I spent every single weeknight over there till it was time to go home. So, I mean, we were super close. I spent a lot of time with her parents as well as her. So very much the typical, I guess, high school type of relationship.
Yeah.
We did a lot of things together, stuff like that. So maybe getting close on to 2 or 3 years by now.
Gotcha. Was your age and the relationship, did that play a role any at all in the fire department thing? Like, I know now as adults we run stuff by our significant others, but
no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no, absolutely not. That was I remember talking to her and saying stuff about it, but and she was around the same group of friends that I was, so she understood. And even in where she went to school in her hometown and stuff like that, she still had friends. She had a twin brother, and they were volunteers and firemen, stuff like that. So she wasn't oblivious to it by any means. But no, I sure didn't need her permission to do anything.
Yep.
So probably a couple years into a relationship now, and I talked to Josh and asked him about the what it took and started that whole process. So I went on a Saturday, did the agility test, went through an interview, all that good stuff. A couple months later, get a part-time job with them, straight into Fayetteville Fire Academy. That's just where they certify you to be 1 and 2 certified. That was the thing back then.
Yeah, so they hire you and then they send you to an academy.
Yep, and then they sent me.
All right.
So, that was, 7 months, 8 months long. So that was a pretty lengthy thing, but I came out done basically. I didn't need anything. Some of the specialty stuff, it was far different back then. We're talking 2005, so it was way different back then than it is now, as far as curriculum and stuff like that goes. So, but I didn't need anything. I came out of the fire academy. Still, while I was in the fire academy, I would go work part-time, work nights and stuff like that. I was just limited to what my purpose could be on the fire grounds from lack of certification and whatnot. So still very much involved in the firehouse.
I didn't realize that we shared the Long Academy.
Mine was different. Yours was an actual academy. Mine was not. Mine was you go, you take classes, you go home.
Okay.
There was no PT aspect. There was no nothing. And I think Fayetteville was one of the more well-known ones. We had guys that lived outside of Charlotte that came down and took, was in my class.
Yeah.
So they were from everywhere. So I don't think it was as big a deal as it is now, where you have all these community colleges kind of getting involved in emergency services. So it was but that's, like I said, that was 2005.
Yeah.
So
all right, so you get out of the academy and you're on a fire truck.
Part-time, still working part-time. I worked every single day, 6 days, at a minimum of 6 days a week, 12-hour shifts every single day. There was 2 shifts, A shift and B shift. They worked 3 12-hour rotations. So basically, you would work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday from 6 to 6. That's a 12-hour. Nobody worked at night. Part-time staff worked at night. You had 3 full-timers and 2 part-timers that worked during the day. I was always one of those part-timers during the day on both shifts. So I worked minimum of 6 days. And so I was in the firehouse every day. Every day.
Was that because they needed it, or you wanted to be at the firehouse?
Most of the one, I wanted to be at the firehouse for sure. I was learning a lot about life in general.
Yeah.
There's a very significant character in this that plays a huge role. But I was learning a lot about life, and just the kind of the same feeling I reckon we all get. This is interesting. This is far different than anything that I was raised in. This is far different than anything that outside of my clique of friends. This is just a completely different environment, and you either love it or you don't. And
Sure.
I loved it.
Nice.
up with it
Yeah.
bad. Sure. So, yes, I mean, I worked at the firehouse at a minimum of 6 days a week. And then sometimes I would work, 24. So I would work the day shift and then turn around and work the night shift. So
What kind of call volume do you guys have?
we didn't run any medical responses at all. So it was all alarms and fires and wrecks. And it averaged out. I think we were the highest that I remember our annual volume was maybe, seems like I remember us hitting 1,500 one year and that being a really big deal.
Yeah.
But, the city that I work for, it was not like a city that you would think of. It was very small. The actual city limits, part of it was very small. So everything outside of it was very rural. It was a very rural community, stuff like that. And we had a humongous district. So lots of fires. Less alarms than fires.
That's outstanding.
Yeah. So lots of fires, lots of wrecks. So I mean, it was about like anything else. Some days were hot, some days were not. I mean, so
I can see where that
lots of exposure.
where that would pull you in.
Sure. Yeah. Lots of exposure. And then working with those guys, they were just as eat up as I was. So it was great learning and a great way to be brought up. Walking through that, I quickly figured out after about a year and a half that the department I was working at was great if I wanted a job, but not great if I wanted a career. It was not, there wasn't room for growth within the department.
Well, like you said, there wasn't a lot of attrition. So.
I went out for full time one time, and I wasn't chosen to be a full-time employee. Somebody else was chosen who was hired probably 3 months prior to the process of the full-time process. They were hired, and that really got under my skin really bad. I put in all this time, all this effort, all these hours. It's just in the back of your mind. You're like, I'm a shoo-in. Why are we even having a process?
Yeah.
So I was not chosen for that, and that really kind of changed my perspective on things, and kind of put it in my brain. Well, might not be the best thing if I want an actual job. I was getting to the age where, I needed to start looking at benefits and stuff like that. I was not a college student. Mom and Daddy were not going to pay, my health insurance and everything for the rest of my life. It just wasn't I could not be a part-time employee as a career.
Yeah.
So
in this time frame, did you have somebody like a senior guy or somebody in your ear?
For sure.
Okay.
A very special character. I remember him from the agility test all the way. I remember almost every day spent working with this particular fella. His name was Stafford. He was a captain or a lieutenant is what they had then. He was a lieutenant for Clinton full time, was a part-time police officer, owned a landscaping business, owned a car dealership, and just an extremely larger than life character. And I wanted to be in his back pocket every day, no matter what he was doing. Whether he was fixing cars to sell, I wanted to be there. If he was cutting grass, I wanted to be there. If he was at the firehouse, I wanted to be there.
Was his personality the draw, or was it just the so many different things?
No, I definitely think it was just him.
I got you.
I don't. Yeah. He could have been sewing baskets underwater, and it wouldn't have mattered. I'd have sat right there and breathed bubbles with him.
I got you.
It was just him. I was very much drawn to him. He often said that I was the son that he never had. Very drawn to him. We fought a lot of fire together. We went through all kinds of experiences together. My first deaths, experiencing death as a fireman. He was there. He was there for a lot of things, and just ups and downs through relationships, as little as they are when you're 18 to 20 years old, is minute. They're a big deal for you then, but it's minute in the grand scheme of things. He was there. We used to eat dinner a lot together. I mean, every single second that I was not at the firehouse, I was with him doing something. And if it was night, we were in his shop, talking, playing pool, doing something. I mean, I was literally up his tail all the time.
Yeah. So how old is this guy compared to you?
Let's see. He was at least he was at least 8 to 10 years older than I was,
Okay.
at least. So a much older fella, but you know how us firemen are. The age thing doesn't matter in the firehouse because
That's
we're
right,
all
yeah.
kids in the firehouse. And I think that played a part in it, the fact that he was a kid when we were at the firehouse, but I also saw the seriousness and the kind of that discipline and that work ethic outside of the firehouse. So you know, I learned a lot from him, you know, for those years throughout all of it.
If you were going to describe his personality like a stern fella, easygoing, that typical senior guy, like what?
He was very stern,
Okay.
very, very stern. Within 5 seconds of meeting Lee, you knew exactly where you stood with him because
right, yeah.
he was not ashamed to tell you. And that reputation carried him throughout the town. I mean, everybody knew. There was people who loved Lee, who really knew Lee, like myself, and then there was people who had heard of Lee. So
Right.
it was, but yes, it was very stern. He didn't back down from anything. If something that he didn't agree with or he deemed wrong, and this is for all aspects of his life, he wouldn't hesitate. He didn't care about your feelings. That was mine included. I was the son he never had. If I was out of line, he was quick to tell me, you know, you need to get your shit together. You know, this is ridiculous or whatever.
Yeah.
Or that was a stupid decision or something. But yes, very stern. I think that was probably a lot of the cop in him, you know, not being able to deal well with, you know, the BS and always keeping that kind of guard up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just, yeah, very stern, very stern. He definitely had a reputation around town.
Yeah. Brutally
Definitely.
honest kind of guy.
Very brutally honest, very outlandish. He liked to drink, and when he drank, his mouth opened up. So,
Yeah.
So that was definitely a part of it. He was known. He was a popular guy. So
Gotcha. He was. So,
was.
So when do you and Lee part ways?
Oh, let's see. June 6th or 9th. I can't remember. June 6th or 9th. 2010, 12. 10 or 12. I can't remember. I will remember and I will correct myself. That was a heavy couple years. Hopefully folks will understand the gap as the story unfolds, but
Sure.
whether I can remember it's 2010 or 2012. But so somewhere in there, I got a phone call super late at night. By this time I had moved out. I was on my own. To be quite honest with you, I had taken that period of time. I'm just going to lay some groundwork. Taking that period of time where I wasn't positive about staying with Clinton or going somewhere else or something like that. I was a dispatcher for a short stint.
Get out.
Terrible idea.
Yeah.
It took me 15 minutes to realize I did not belong in that room in the dark with all those computer screens, much less the fact that Lee had rubbed off on me so bad that answering phone calls was not a great idea for me.
Right.
So I had done that. Also, I had started being employed and was employed with New Hanover County by then with the department I'm with now. So, you know, I was hired and I had a couple years here. Lee pinned my badge on me when I, you know, graduated our academy here. So we're at 2007 then. That's when that happened, when I was employed here or became employed here. So, you know, that time period and, you know, Lee mentored me a lot. He coached me to come to New Hanover a little bit, but he was very hesitant. He didn't want me to leave.
Sure.
Selfishly, he knew what that meant. I mean, he knew that his part-time helper was gone. I mean, like I said, selfishly, he didn't want me to leave, but he never held me back. I would get off from work with New Hanover and go straight home and get the lawn trailer and all that stuff, and away I'd go to cut grass, just like that. So it was definitely June 6th or 9th, whatever, 2010, 2012. I'll make sure I get clarity on that. I got a phone call super late one night, by another great friend of mine who's employed from Hanover County as well, telling me that Lee had an accident. And I didn't understand. You know, I just woke up. I was like, "What do you mean Lee had an accident?" And he said he shot himself. And I said, "Okay, so is he at the hospital? You know, where's, you know,
Right.
okay, is he all right?" You know, instantly start laughing. Where, you know, shot
Yeah.
himself in the hand or whatnot. And then I could hear his voice change, and he was like, "Nah, he's dead, bro." And I was like, "Whatever." I immediately hang up the phone, get dressed, to his house I go. When I got there, I might have been one of the first handful of people that was there. Obviously, his wife was there. I think a few cops had gotten there. His other good friend, probably his best friend, he was there, and it was starting to kind of become reality, I guess you could say, but still in denial. And I remember parking because the few policemen that were there had parked and kind of blocked the driveway off. So I remember slamming my truck in the park and beelined straight for the shop because that's where Lee was. If he wasn't asleep, he was in the shop.
Sure, yeah.
Beelining towards the shop, and everybody hollering, don't go up there, don't go up there, and whatnot. And one of the cops actually stopped me, but not before I could see. That Lee was laying there behind his desk, had definitely shot himself in the head, and it still didn't really quite set in all the way yet. You're still in denial a little bit. So dealing with that, that was a for sure low point in my life. My best friend, my mentor, the guy who pinned me, had taught me so much about the fire service that I love today. Seeing him laying there like that was not exactly what you want. So
that's a life altering situation
for sure. Absolutely for sure. So I don't know if it was my upbringing from my mom and dad or whatever, but something inside me has always had this burning desire to serve, whether it be total strangers, kind of with the job that we're at now, whether it be my officer, my fireman, whatever it may be. I've always had this burning desire to want to serve. I think a lot of people put this big umbrella on it and say, help people, help people. But to me, it's just service. I've always had that weird desire to serve, and I'm great at serving as a mask to dealing with my own stuff.
Sure.
Immediately, still with this very clear image of my best friend laying there dead with half his head gone in a shop floor where I had spent so many hours. All I can muster up is to go to his wife and tell her I said, look, I'll take care of the grass tomorrow. I mean,
the brain starts thinking more
dude,
simple.
And I've carried that. Even now, I carry that. The wanting to serve as a means for kind of masking or dealing with my own problems, my own thing. I still carry that along. And there's not one day that goes by that I don't think about Lee, for sure. His obituary from the newspaper is still taped in my locker at work. It'll be there forever. So yeah, that's yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah. Yeah. To the best I can recall, still in that 7-year relationship period, I remember her being, trying to be sympathetic and trying to be comforting through all of it, but I don't remember it. You know what I mean? I didn't remember anything. I don't remember anything. I remember riding on the fire truck with his casket, and I remember his funeral service and that kind of stuff, but I don't, all the stuff in between and all the details and all that kind of stuff, I don't remember any of it.
Just blurs together a little bit.
I have zero memory of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I was heavily intoxicated or what, but I don't remember any of it. I don't remember any of that stuff, or it's just an area of my life that I've just repeatedly chose to block out, and now it's just so vague that I don't remember it. I don't remember my girlfriend at the time. She may have been my fiance at that time. I don't remember any of that. I don't remember what role she played. I don't remember what role my mom and dad played, my sisters, none of them. The other guys at the firehouse, I remember nothing. It's kind of weird reflecting on, but I don't recall any of it.
Yeah.
Makes for a terrible story.
Yeah. I remember a similar occurrence when when my cousin did the same thing. There was I had questions in my head, like how did we get here? But yeah, hearing you say it, there's gaps in that time frame. What a weird thing to go through. I remember thinking that the world's marching on, and it shouldn't be. I wanted it to stop.
Sure.
Like we have to address this. Man, it's a hard thing to process mentally. I can identify with that. The Serb, like immediately, I started thinking of things that he would have been responsible for that I need to carry on
Sure.
for him. Or
Yep. That's very much kind of the way I was drawn instantaneously. I just there's stuff to be done that Lee was responsible for. There's shifts to work at the firehouse. There's grass to be cut. There's cars that need to be sold. There's stuff. He's not here to do it. Somebody's got to do it. So I was very quick to be the one, to make sure that his family, went through their time of suffering as seamless as possible. And like I said, that still follows me today. Still follows me. It's a fault for sure. As good as the intentions are, it's a problem.
I get that. Yep. During that time frame, I told you with Scott that I didn't know at the time that there were some red flags. Was this one of those like completely out of the blue, or do you feel like now, with some more experience, looking back, maybe it was something recognizable?
Not with that incident, I wouldn't say. Not that I can remember. Anyway, I said, it's a garbage story, I know. But not that I can remember. I just remember diving so hard into work. I remember that night I called my BC because I was scheduled to work the next day, and I said, "Look," I said, "My best friend shot himself. He's dead, and I won't be coming to work tomorrow." And I remember specifically, very much in verbatim, saying, "He said, oh God, take as long as you need," and that was it. And then the overwhelming amount of support from my brothers and my family here in New Hanover, my fire service family. That I remember that flooding in, not necessarily towards me, and I'm sure it was gearing towards me, but I just didn't feel that. But I remember the role that they were playing, bringing cover companies, all the way up, an hour and a half or an hour away from, their home. I remember that little sort of stuff, and I'm sure they did piles of things for me specifically, but I don't remember that. So
that's one of the parts of the fire service that I had no awareness coming in that this was even going to be a thing. But it's in times that are tough for whatever reason, when Keenan was sick, when different things happen, that support that comes is it's impressive.
It's one of the biggest things I can say that is, it could almost be a defining characteristic for firemen, is the ability to support and set their stuff aside for somebody, a brother who's in need, in your department, out of your department. None of it matters. These hands stretch big. And it doesn't matter. So yeah, I'm very, very, very happy to say that I'm a part of a family like that. Such a giving family for sure. So after Lee, what I remember was, kind of a rocky road. I remember kind of coming back out of that, getting back into the routine. I absorbed the grass cutting business that was his. So I was hot and heavy into that. We didn't lose any clients, but lost another person to help with Lee. So, I was working my tail off a lot. I remember calling in sick to New Hanover so I wouldn't fall behind cutting grass. So really heavy workload, a lot of things going on as far as that goes. And I don't remember the date to be exact. I know that in this time period, I had moved out of the apartment that I was renting with my best friend and bought a house with my fiance, the photo lab chick. Mm-hmm. So we had bought a house together. Had kind of done a little bit of reno, paint and all that kind of stuff, making it ours. So we were in it, but we weren't in it long. We started having some issues. Just I don't remember specifically, what the issues were about. Kind of reflecting back now, probably my ridiculously heavy workload combined with the stress of the fire service. And I can't imagine that, because even still to this day, I can't imagine that I still wasn't being kind of hardened and calloused about Lee. So that just took every little issue or every little thing that wasn't going my way and just kind of amplified it so much. So there was that. Like I said, I'm sure I had plenty of issues, but at the time, you never look at yourself for fault by any means. So she had gone out to eat with my sister. My sisters have always been, people I can talk to. If I have a problem or if I'm having a problem, I can call them and, they'll do whatever they feel like they can to resolve, to help resolve or be a part of the process. So me and her were deep into the planning of the marriage and planning of the wedding, that kind of stuff. And, we started having some issues. And I remember calling my sister and asking her, and she was like, well, let me just figure out where her head's at. Maybe you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Let me talk to her and see if I can figure out where her head's at so I can, better help you do what you need to do. And bless her heart for that, right?
No
So
kidding.
they're out to dinner. They go out to dinner one night. I'm home, whatnot. Pull up the laptop that we both shared, start looking at it, see a bunch of messages between her and a guy that we played softball with, was on our softball team. And they were very, very disturbing messages, I guess you could say. You kind of read into where this is going, but they were, very much trying to figure out how to have a relationship. And she didn't want to disappoint anybody. She knew how close my family was. She knew how close I was with her family. And I just remember sitting there and reading all this stuff while she's out with my sister trying to figure out what the problem is. This whole time I'm thinking, I'm doing something wrong. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. And I'm sure I was. I'm not taking that. But to figure out that she's trying to figure out a way to to start another relationship, kind of the let him down easy part. How can I make this as painless as possible? I lost it. Absolutely lost my mind. I remember calling her and telling her, I won't go verbatim with it, but telling her she needed to come home right now. And she was like, well, I'm eating with your sister. We hadn't even got our food yet, and I don't care. I want you to come home right now. Probably not the best decision of my life. But
Right.
so anyway, she gets home. I lose my mind, obviously. I broke all kinds of things. I broke the computer. I can't tell you how many the slats in the deck out back. I can't tell you. I completely lost my mind. So anyway, she leaves, rightfully so. She leaves. So that point was probably, that was my low for sure. I had dedicated 7.5 years of my life to this girl, and I'm very much a man of service. I carry that with my wife now. I want to do everything in my power to make everybody around me's life as easy as possible, much to the sacrifice of my own. So it was very, very hard for me because there was nothing I could do. I couldn't, you start playing stuff in your head of, how can I make this better? Do I just forget? Do I just forgive her? Say, hey, so that was about a 2-week period that was very much spent inside of a bottle.
Trying to figure out which way's up.
Yeah. Just, my whole world would have been flipped completely upside down. She was there with me through Lee. I mean, through the darkest times that I had prior, she was always the girl. But yeah, my whole world was flipped upside down. And, at 22 years old, 21 and a half, 22 years old, all you've ever known since you were a high school.
Working at the pig.
Yeah. I mean, that ruined me bad. Cheating and beating unfaithful was not something that happened in my house.
Yeah.
That was not something that ever happened. Didn't come from a broken home by any means. My sister married her high school sweetheart, still very much married today. I mean, it was just something that didn't happen. And if it happened, it was very much frowned upon. There was always something. The good Lord put you two together. You took a vow in front of that person as well as the witnesses and God. And you were going to keep that no matter how bad it was. It didn't matter. You were going to keep those promises.
Yeah.
So, it was world changing for me.
How much time between Lee and this event?
Not long.
Damn it.
Yeah, not long. Less than 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, less than 2 years for sure.
That working, like after he passed and you pick up the torch and you're helping, you're working, keeping busy. I feel like it was probably the same way I would have done it, that I'm going to heal through just staying busy.
That's right.
If you stop, it kind of feels like everything comes back. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Mercy.
Absolutely.
What an event to go through.
Yeah, it was and there was a 2-week period, so that happened after she left the first time. She left for 2 weeks, and probably, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 days, I started reestablishing communication with her because I thought it was the right thing to do.
Okay.
And you work through your problems. You have a slip, you do what you have to. So I had started kind of reestablishing communication with her. We're getting close to right about around Christmas now. So all that, it's kind of this loose conversation and whatnot. So she worked out of town from where we lived. So I met her for lunch one day, and we talked, had a good conversation. Ended up doing some Christmas shopping together. I believe she had actually came to a family Christmas function of mine on my side of the family. So sails are in the wind. We're headed the right direction. And then just one night, she just dropped the bomb. It was like, I don't want to marry you. And here we go again. So, start the whirlwind again. This time it was easier, I will say. It wasn't quite as world rocking. Sure, I was mad, but I was more mad because of the things that I was going to have to do now. I was going to have to figure out what we're going to do with this house. What are we going to do with finances? What are we, just all these things I didn't want to have to do. I don't want to do that. None of that sounds fun. I don't want to do that. So, just going through all that time period and stuff like that. I moved in with my sister and her now husband. I moved in with them, and they had plans. They weren't going to stay in the house they were in at that time, so I was just going to slide right in there. Gather a few more roommates, and we'd live there. So that really wasn't a problem. So that, it was a not such a painful time, I'd say. More of a what can I do to make this hurt you more than hurt me, kind of thing. This kind of breakup where, you hurt me bad, when you decided to go down the path with the other gentleman. Now I'm going to hurt you back. Let's make this an equal hurt opportunity.
Human nature, man.
Sure, yeah. So, it was bad. I made the house stuff as painful as possible. I was going to give the house to her. I knew that. I didn't want it. But I made sure every single thing that I had paid for that wasn't us together paying for, I took. And that meant light switch covers. That meant shower heads. That meant, if I could have figured out how to do it, to unroll paint off the wall and put it back in the can. Dude, yeah, everything. Everything. And it felt so good. I know that's bad.
Yeah.
But, man, it felt good. So we kind of went through that. But then there was a time period of 9 to 11 months that, man, it was party central for 23-year-old Matt Hoffman. It was a fun time. I lived with 2 other firemen. So we had the joint community house that all of our friends and stuff like that. I was the popular guy, and I had never been that way. And I liked it a lot.
Man, we've gone from being born in Lincolnton to moving over to Clinton, developed some relationships,
Lost some relationships.
lost some
Yeah.
relationships. Man, there's I didn't know this about you.
Yeah, man. There's not a lack of stories in my life. Thank God. My life has been anything other than boring, and I hadn't even got started yet.
Yeah, I met you in 2010, and now knowing this story explains some of our interactions and stuff. Man, communication.
Yeah,
It's a good thing to
you
do.
don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
For sure. That 2009 to early 2012 period was man, that was a rough time. I had Lee, then my fiance, the whole deal with her, absorbing his business, learning how to do that, run a business, and all that, and then just the absolute never-ending night shenanigans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot that happened in that period. It was a lot of a lot of structured pieces in a pie that was seriously unstructured.
Yeah.
So
Goodness. Do
yeah.
you have any photo evidence? Hopefully you do, and I can sew it into the timeline here.
Sure, yeah, lots
Yeah.
of it.
All right.
Sure,
That's good.
lots of it.
Yeah, it makes for a good time.
Sure, lots of it. For real.
The things that we go through, like that part of your story, it's nobody would want to sign up for it, but it adds to your character.
Sure.
Do you see ways, like after that window of time, do you see where it added to or impacted just you in the fire department or you in life?
I would say all of the above for sure. Looking back on it and kind of trying to understand, that was a weird age. Still learning a lot in that age. Obviously, my brain wasn't formed all the way by any means by then, and I wasn't helping it form.
No, yeah.
But it's a lot easier looking back now and understanding the things that I learned and the things that I still pull from that. Those past experiences in order to kind of help guide me in the situations and the decisions that I need to make now. Not necessarily so much with the fire service, but just the life in general, especially when it comes to my relationships now with my wife now. I never, ever, ever have tried or try to make the parallel to compare her to my past fiance, but I have done a whole lot of comparing when it comes to how I treat her, how we talk, how we communicate, trying my best to never allow myself to sow seeds of doubt with her and stuff like that. And having that, don't get me wrong, we're a married couple. We have 2 kids. We obviously have disagreements.
Sure.
We do on a daily basis, and it's okay. But just the understanding of that, fighting when I was with my ex-fiance, just the fighting was either you're right or I'm right, and that's it. And I tried to do everything I could to make sure I was right. Turns out that was a bit manipulative, taking her away from who she was as a person to make her fit the mold that I had the idea of what it should be like. And that's not reality. And, I mean, sure, other circumstances happened. I'm sure that helped contribute to, her wanting to leave anyway. She was being manipulated. She was being molded into something that wasn't her, which is fine. I mean, it's a life, it's a thing that we probably should go through. I'm lucky, I guess. I can count on one hand the amount of relationships that I've had in my life when it comes to women. Maybe I've had less than 5 girlfriends ever. So
That's crazy to me.
So, I mean, I don't know. There was definitely, seeing multiple women during that time period after her and then before my future or my wife now. I was with a lot of women and spending time with a bunch of different women and, stuff like that. It was the loneliness thing was not something I was good with. From basically my whole adult life, I always had a female companion, and that loneliness scared me. So there, I was trying to mask that, obviously.
You grew up in a household with sisters.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
yeah. I always had that, that female companionship, and then not having that was, it was not something I was fond of by any means. So, I used other aspects to put into that void. So,
Yeah. In the fire service side of it,
okay.
Was there any other, did somebody end up being in that spot? Like at that time, did anybody, I don't want to say take over. Nobody replaces the people that we lose, right? But you end up, as life goes on, we build relationships with different folks. Did you have anybody else influential in you during that time from the fire service side, or somebody that ended up being like a senior guy toward you? Or
Sure. The captain I had then was obviously very supportive, and I looked up to him from the get go. So he wasn't Lee by any means, by any stretch of the imagination was he Lee, but he's very good. I mean, he was top notch officer. Could definitely put him in the top 10 list of officers that I've ever met, known, or served with, very easily, if not even in the top 5. So he was great. He was wonderful. Very much helped me through that process. Even still today, we have a great relationship still today. He's not my officer anymore, has since moved on, but we still have a fantastic relationship today. But also, I was quite a bit more mature in my fire service career by then. Lee died 2009. I'd had some time in. I started in 2005. So, I had 4 years in, and then moved into a bigger department where I had some years in with the bigger department. So, necessarily trying to find somebody that would feel what Lee was to me wasn't really at the forefront of my mind, because I felt like that time of learning from Lee was gone. And there was the things that he offered me outside of the fire service. Nobody was going to be able to feel that, period. So I wouldn't say a particular person necessarily stepped in and kind of, became that mentor for me. I kind of just swung the boat around and started becoming that person myself. Right ways and wrong ways. Obviously, I had a lot to learn, but I wanted to be Lee for somebody else.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So, I started jumping in with both feet to everything I could for new firemen, whether it be running PT for academies, helping with the onboarding process, start doing what I needed to do to be able to teach, to be an instructor, that type of thing, because I wanted so desperately to be Lee for somebody else. I knew the purpose that he served in my life, even though it was a short period of time. I knew that purpose and what that meant. So I wanted to be that for somebody else. And just that wanting to serve, I love my fire service. And I don't take kindly to people who look down on it. I don't take kindly to that's also Lee coming out.
Right.
I don't take kindly to people who want to abuse it or, use the fire service as a means for something other than what it was meant to be. So, I'm protective, very protective. But at the same time, service is still at the forefront. You make it past my fence, I'm here for you, bro. I mean, you're more than welcome to anything that I own, but you got to make it past the fence.
I think I know that about you. When I met you in 2010, there was an abrasive front, and I don't know that I saw past that abrasive front for a lot of
people don't.
Yeah, I think like you're saying, until you see that there's a little honor, a little respect toward the fire service, that abrasive front's going to be there. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's we all have our ways, and our unique personality traits. I remember.
You can say ego. I mean, I get that thrown at me all the time about, it's your ego. Your ego's larger than life. The story of Matthew Hoffman, or the legacy of Matthew Hoffman is bigger than Matthew Hoffman. It's like, I don't mean for it to come across that way, but I hate that it's described that way, but it may be the truth. And I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I get
should
that.
I should be softer sometimes, but
I don't know.
sometimes I should be harder.
Yeah.
So anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off. But
No, yeah.
I just wanted you to feel comfortable saying ego.
Yeah, right.
So
The my academy, you came out and helped with like we were talking about. It was an academy run by the department. So on A shift days, you guys were close by, if not out there on the scene. But you were to us almost unapproachable. You know, like you were this big presence. You know, and I remember even I got on A shift. You know, I was right down the street from you guys.
Sure.
When you and your crew, you ended up on truck 17, and you came by 11, kind of selling what the truck was going to do.
I was with pipe hitters too, though. Then, man,
You sure were.
My crew was no joke.
That was a stud crew.
So, I mean, I had to be that guy.
Yeah, yeah. Man, I think you were still abrasive, but I was starting to see that it was work related. It wasn't, I think I'm better than anybody else. It was just you are into the fire service and being good at your job. Just sharing this with you from the outside. You know, I was green in 2010. It took until probably deep into 2011, so knowing you like a year and a half or two, to start realizing that I could talk to you. The developing of that relationship was slow.
Sure.
But now hearing your story, it makes more sense, and I kind of respect it even more that we earned respect for each other. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
I just relate that. I think a lot of that comes from how I was brought into the fire service. You know, I was a nobody. I was a turkey farmer and a grocery bagger and a failed pizza maker. I mean, I was nothing. Had no idea of the fire service before I came in. So that earning part, and then I was put into the fire academy where I was surrounded by guys whose stories were not like mine. Very few. They either had prior volunteer service, their family members were in service. I'm a first-generation fireman. Mom and dad did some kind of military service. I didn't have any of that kind of structured, that kind of, I don't know, that kind of rigid set of lines to follow. So, when I was brought into it, I thought that's the way it was, and I need to be like that.
Right.
When new people come in, I have to be the people who brought me in. And I don't think it's a disservice by any means.
I don't think so either. I think there's a chance that the fire service is missing what you're describing. That senior guy bringing in the rookie, and instead of focusing on beating that person down, share some tips and tricks.
Sure.
And share the culture, share the right things. I didn't. In the academy, they taught us some of the culture stuff, but I didn't really understand it until getting on the rig and then being around it some, I wish it was so easy that you could just teach it. It's not,
For sure. It's even still, if you could find some magical way to try to teach it in a classroom setting, by the time the academy graduates and then the guys are thrown into the fire service, all they have is academy experience. They don't have firehouse. They don't have firehouse sense. They don't have firehouse etiquette. They don't know firehouse rules, the unspoken, unwritten rules of my beloved fire service. I mean, there are rules, and it's so weird to say now, but to us old guys, who've been in the service for, a decade or so now, those rules still apply. And it's a rigid thing that I think we're missing the buck in not taking the opportunity to be a little bit softer, but I think it's the pendulum is swinging too far. The trash talk and the picking and the pranks and all that kind of stuff, that's part of what builds. In your interview, we talked about that 1/3 thing. You spend a third of your life with these people. In my case, I saw my brothers in the fire service more than I saw my grandparents. So, I'm around them more, and that's an important piece, because at the end of the day, when the rubber meets the road, if it was a bad situation, there's no room for doubt in anybody's mind, whether it be your officer or whether it be your own. Of well, he said something that pissed me off or that offended me. So now, when it's time to go to work and it's time to do something, that shouldn't even be in the brain. That's not a thing. And I think the holding of the grudges kind of would, if you don't go through that, if you don't go through the nagging and all that kind of stuff, kind of that firehouse etiquette, if you don't go through that, I believe you don't understand that. That, we talk junk to each other constantly. If we're talking junk. And from the outside looking in, that doesn't look like a fun thing. But, the guys who have been doing it, when it's time to go to work, we don't talk junk to each other. I mean, we work seamlessly, often completing tasks not being asked to do. It's just, your people inside and out. And talking trash is a way to do that.
Yeah, it's
and
a big,
then not
a big
only
part.
not even only the trash talking, but the response to the trash talking is a big thing. If I can talk trash to you and then you can talk trash back to me, we're square. I mean, you know how it is.
I sure do. I also think there's a tactical benefit. So you run whatever car wreck or whatever run you want to describe as a good one or a bad one or whatever. When you get back to the firehouse, that ribbing is part of the systems check.
Sure.
How's everybody doing? And we never identified it as that.
It's unspoken, unwritten.
Absolutely, but it's in the rules.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's a rule.
Yeah.
Dark humor. It's a thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
Couldn't agree more.
And your point of the ribbing and the stuff, but when a call happens, fire, wreck, whatever, even people that you don't necessarily get along with, when it's go time and it's work time, all that stuff goes away. And that's another one of those default parts of the fire service that impresses me so often. In our department, the city-county relations along about that 2012, 2013.
Rocky. At best.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it was, you could call it competitive if you were going to be nice.
It was a pissing contest.
Yeah, it sure was. But during those times, there were structure fire responses and car wrecks where we were working. We had Rescue 18, Rescue 2, going back and forth, very competitive. And from the outside looking in, you're like, these guys hate each other. But we get on a wreck and work together.
Sure.
And get on a fire, work together. We might be talking cash shit to each other, but the work was getting done. And the work part of it didn't suffer any. That's wild to me that two organizations, two crews that get along or don't get along, it doesn't matter when it's time to put down the work, get it done.
But can you draw a correlation with how that stuff happens and then how you were brought up? I mean, you're lucky you got into it. I mean, you got it from me when you first started in the fire service, that abrasiveness, that kind of, earn your way in type thing. Imagine that not being there. And you always put yourself as the person outside looking in, not ever the person in it.
Right.
I think if you get rid of it, if you try to dumb it down, first off, the old guys are not going to let you dumb it down anyway.
Right. Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. But it's an important thing, and it's a big part of character building, especially for firemen. It was for me, huge. And just playing that role and blowing it up and taking it into life in general, not fire service specific, but the ability to, I was mentioned earlier about the communication part with my wife. I can communicate with my brothers at work before I got good at it, easier with the guys at work than I could my own wife. And that's a problem. To me, that's a problem. And I think it's a problem that probably a lot of firemen suffer with. But just learning how to communicate. When it's time to be serious, the firemen are serious. When it's not, they're not. And it's just that easy. It's a flip of a switch. So being able to do that at home as well, there's a time to be joking, but when there's a topic that needs to be discussed or there's an issue that your wife has with you or your significant other, your spouse has with you, you need to be receptive to that. That's serious time. When it's over, we can go back to playing, and living in the bubble that everybody thinks we live in all the time.
Right.
So
If there was somebody new in the fire service, either in the academy or in that first year, any advice for that person?
Sure. Keep your head down. Do like you're asked. Don't complain. Question, but don't complain. Questions never hurt anybody. Question all you want, but don't complain. You chose to be there. Nobody made you be a fireman. And just hold on. Soak up every piece of knowledge that you possibly can. Because us old guys are phasing out. I'm over the hill in my career. So, we're leaving. And I as of right now, I'm not greatly confident that what's replacing us is going to have that mentoring side that we all grew up in. So, stick close to the old guys and soak up all the information you can. Keep your head down, keep your mouth shut, and that's it. When you're given a task, complete the task. You don't have to understand it. You can go back and ask when it's over.
Yeah.
The reasoning.
Agreed.
Especially on the fire scene, if you're asked to do something, that's not the time to question it. After when you get back, no officer, no senior fireman is gonna look down on you because you asked a question. If you're questioning a decision approached in the right manner, it should happen.
Yeah, questions are a good thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep, questioning.
Yeah,
is a different animal.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you.
I hope that's good advice.
I feel like it is. If you have a question,
I can add something else.
Yeah,
I don't want to cut you off, but I can add something else.
Okay.
It's a great quote. I can't take credit for it. However, I wish I could. Try hard every day to not offend somebody. Try harder not to be offended.
That's value.
So, just understand the jawing and the jabbing that's part of the rite of passage. Stick with it long enough, keep your head down, don't get offended by it, and you'll be the one doing it. So
yeah, and seek out that senior.
That's right.
Yeah, it might not be the most senior person around, but the one that's willing to share after a few questions, willing to share some tips and tricks, forcing doors, pulling hose, searching.
Sure.
The ones that are talking about the real nuts and bolts, ask the questions.
Sure.
Yeah. You can get a conversation going with a couple of questions, and then sit back and listen.
That's right.
Yeah. Right. Do you have any heroes right now?
Let's see. Well, my father will always be my hero, for sure, hands down. Lee was a great mentor, but he will never be in comparison to my father. The way he loves his family, the way he loves my mother. I still soak up things from him all the time. Not fire service related specifically, but just life in general. He's just a wealth of incredible information, and sometimes it's completely nonverbal. And that's good and bad. I've picked up a lot of things and apply a lot of things with my relationship and my children, not as positive. I took things that he did that I see now as maybe not being the best approach and try to apply it differently. So, we talked about the rod and stuff like that, the positive disciplinary reinforcement, I guess you could say, but never the explanation of why was something that I can reflect back. Now, we acted this way because that's what we were told, not much of an explanation. So I just flipped that and carried it a little bit further. I believe in very much the physical discipline. It doesn't have to necessarily be spanking, but I believe in that the physical and, the physical labor allows you to reflect on things quite a bit. But the explanation of the reason that you're having, like my children, for example, why I'm having them do that, it plays a big difference to me. I can see it in them. I can see when it clicks in their little brains, when something makes sense. Whereas if you don't, to me, if you don't take the time to explain the why part, you never get to see that formulation happen. So you don't really, they're just not doing something because they fear the outcome. They fear daddy's wrath.
Right.
So
How many kids?
do I have?
Mhm.
Two.
Two.
6-year-old boy and a 2-year-old girl. She stays more disciplined than he does. No, he's getting to that age, 6, where he wants to, try to push his boundaries and try to push out. And it's just things are different. It's the COVID thing and all that. School's been tough. It's a lot on our children as well as us. You think you have it bad? Try flipping a 6-year-old world's upside down, or a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 10-year-old, high schooler. Any of them, try flipping that completely upside down. You have to be mindful of their life too. What seems like a minute problem to you is
Everything
to them. So, kind of putting a little perspective on things. And I don't know that my father did that very well. Didn't really try to understand the perspective of both sides. It was just his upbringing. I mean, that's the way Granddaddy was. I mean, it was his way or no way. And this was the consequences if you chose to deviate. So,
Yeah. Your family setting now, how long have you guys been married?
don't get me lying, forever. No. Let's see. We got married in 2012. So we dated for a year. There was about a 9-month period from my ex-fiance to when I met my wife, and we dated, and then we were married. So it seems super short, but divine intervention, maybe, or whatever. I had never met my wife prior to the absolute night that we met. There was no previous history. She knew nothing about me. I knew nothing about her. We were from 2 separate counties, 2 separate school districts, completely separate sets of friends. She had a coworker that was friends with my sister's husband, and that's kind of how it all got set up, where we met each other. And she claims to this day, might be ego talking here, but she knew the night that we met that she was going to marry me. Whether that be good or bad, I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful there.
Yeah, she says that she knew that night. She says it. She said, I knew first night I met you, you were going to be the man I married. So I don't know. Like I said, you can call it divine intervention or the plan or whatever, but it's working. It's working very well. We're very much in love with each other. We have our problems. We have our ups and downs. We have our lack of communication, but we're growing. I think we've taken the proper route and choose to take every conflict as a learning and growing opportunity versus fighting. Men and women are different. So different.
How does she fight?
How does she fight?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she's dirty. She's a dirty fighter. I'm very much a fix-it person. Give me a problem, I want to fix it. And it's that service mentality, that service mindset. You could say you have a list of things that are stressing you out, and automatically I want to know those things. What are those things? And then my brain puts them in list form and tries to figure out how I can fix it.
Yeah.
How can I fix this? How can I fix this? How can I fix this? And sometimes that's not always the answer. There are things that you can't fix physically. There's things that you just can't fix. It's just the way it is. And women have the ability to pile on a whole lot more than us men. There's a great book. It's called Women Are Like Spaghetti, Men Are Like Waffles. So it's a great book, and it's very accurate. Men, we take things and compartmentalize them, and we handle one square like a waffle. We handle one square at a time, and we progress through the waffle, right?
Yeah.
Women are like spaghetti. The noodles of spaghetti just everywhere.
Yeah, but they still process
and
it.
they seem like they can just function seamlessly. A lot of that's biological, but it's impressive, and you can't think you can step into their world and fix their problems or what they see as problems. And once again, just the perspective and understanding that what seems so dumb and so minute to you is a big deal to somebody else. So just trying to understand that. And like I said, I still struggle with it big time because she'll be having a bad day, and I want to know how to fix it. She doesn't deserve to ever have a bad day, to me.
Yeah.
Every day should be perfect. So, So we've very much in love, very much moving forward, having a ball, raising our kids together. As a fireman, gone for 24 hours and stuff like that. She's extremely strong. She was very independent, always has been, which was a problem earlier in our relationship. She needed me for nothing, and I work a service career that people need me to do things, and
Right.
my wife was like, "Nah, I can do that. My tire goes flat, I'll fix it myself, or I'll go through the avenues to fix it, have it fixed." So that was, trying to understand the roles and responsibilities, and I'm still learning that. I mean, we've been married for that long now, or been together for that long now. So, I mean, yeah, it's a learning thing. Can't ever stop learning.
Yeah, I agree. Any moves coming up?
Any moves?
Yeah, you gonna be moving
Moving where?
anywhere?
Moving, like physically moving?
Yeah, the house you live in. Are you ever gonna move
Oh,
out
my
of it?
home with my
Yeah.
family. No, absolutely not. We're in our forever home for sure, unless something bad happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of fell into our lap. Once again, her wonderful intuition. The day I took her up to it to see about renting it, she was like, "Yeah, we'll probably live here the rest of our life." I was like, "Okay." Since we've added on, renovated and stuff like that, but I don't know, man. A woman's intuition is crazy. Man, it's crazy. So, yeah. So no, I don't plan on moving. I'm not moving at all.
She seems like she knows what she wants.
She does.
We touched on it a second ago. The fire service right now as a whole, not ours, not our department,
Mm-hmm.
but just in general. What's your hope for the fire service?
I hope that we can, as the fire service in general, can find some type of middle ground when it comes to how we're paid. I've never been one to complain about the money that I make to do the job that I do, but it seems to be a never-ending issue, and a very, very, very big sense of friction between the department heads, and whether you work in a municipality or for county commissioners or whatever. It always seems to be a friction point. I wish that wasn't there. I believe in alleviating stress. The less stress you have, the more efficient you can be. So trying to alleviate that, having some kind of standard versus shooting from the hip once a year, or whatever it may be, some kind of standard or guideline to follow. And I understand that it's going to be different for every area that people live. Cost of living, things are different, but still maybe having some kind of standard that just because you fall into this category, okay, so we can plug you in over here, and you're going to be able to see how you can progress and how you can rise through the ranks if that's what you choose to do. But just having the military's great at it. Why are we so garbage at it? The military, they got it down. I mean, their rank structure is, they got it. I mean, there's things set in place. When you get promoted to this, you make this, or this is in your 10-year plan. You have to make this position within 10 years. So I guess more structure as far as the pay and stuff goes. This mental health thing really scares me. That seems to be a big national push right now, if not worldly, globally now. But that scares me a little bit with the whole mental health thing. And that's probably a topic in a podcast all in itself. I appreciate the attention to it, but I've dealt with a lot of death in my time. Several, I mean, that could be a podcast too, of death experience. But I've had piles of friends, piles of coworkers, people in the same job as we do. That as you get older, people start dying, and so a lot of death, and that's not necessarily call related deaths, but just people that friends. So I've dealt with a lot with that. I believe in providing a healthy outlet for them, but not necessarily pushing the narrative of, because you're in my fire service, you have a problem.
Sure.
I don't believe you have a problem until you have a problem. And if you're constantly being told that you have a problem when you don't necessarily know that you have a problem, I believe that it does the opposite. Whereas you used to be scared to admit that you had a problem, now you're scared to say you don't.
Right.
So it's like the pendulum. It's kind of, I think that's what scares me. It's almost breeding this kind of victim culture within the fire service. Whereas if you don't have PTSD, or you don't suffer from something, that you're an outcast. There's something wrong. You're wrong, or you're not admitting it. You're not dealing with it. So I have a different kind of perspective on that. I feel like it may be pushing the kind of wanting us to be a little more in touch with our inner feelings than maybe we need to be. I think that's necessary for some folks, but for some folks, it's not. So I don't know. Maybe soft firemen terrify me
Yeah.
because I can tell you, my wife, she's a firecracker, and if something happens to me and it's the fault of a soft fireman, I feel really sorry for that guy.
Right.
Yeah, really sorry. And I think that's a lot of things that people don't understand. They don't, whether it be taking promotions or something like that, not understanding the full responsibility of the decisions that are going to be had. They're going to be forced to make. They're going to be expected to make, and the possible consequences that could come with that.
Along those lines of the mental health thing, hearing you talk about it kind of made me think that part of my fear in that, you know how everybody says we're a data-driven organization or
Sure.
a service, like you said, there has been a lot of statistics coming up, and it worries me that that finding like this first answer to try to change some of those numbers might not be the best. I think a problem gets presented. We're firemen. We want to solve a problem.
Absolutely.
So you find a short answer. It's like, well, let's start implementing that.
I believe if we want to get into the mental health side of things, you need to understand no matter what your feeling is, you're not alone in that way that you feel. Whether it's you feel nothing when it comes to death, or you feel the emotional weight of the world when you experience death, that any one of those things is not wrong, or anything in between is not wrong. You're not going to be chastised for feeling one way or the other. But just understanding that, like I said, I view death way different. I'm terrible at it. I'm
Right.
not good at it. My wife's father just died. And I told her, I was like, you're going to have, I know this is not what you want to hear, but you're going to have to tell me how to act for you, because I don't know. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at being empathetic when it comes to death, because I don't know if it's where I've seen it or where I've just chose to be callous by it, and that's just the default, and that's what I do. But I am willing to serve. If you say I need you to cry your eyes out right now in order to make me feel better, I'm going to find some emotion somewhere deep down,
Right.
and I'm going to do it. But those feelings aren't natural to me. Or if it's just the fact that I understand that 100% of people die, and when it's time to die, that's it.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody crying over me.
Right. Primary complete.
Ooh, greatest show on the planet.
Yeah. Do you? What are your goals here? What are you looking to see happen?
Fun and education. I have a serious desire to educate, which most people who know me know that about me. I'm very much involved in teaching numerous different things. But the education, as well as the fun, the ability to take the firehouse conversation to where somebody can have that anytime they want it. I think that's a very therapeutic thing for a lot of folks. So I don't know, man. I want to kind of generically let it see where it goes, organically let it grow, and I want to help as many people as I possibly can through what little bit of knowledge that I can share, and then just through stories. The ability for somebody just to tell a story is very, very therapeutic. I don't know how long we've been going today, but I feel like I've been talking for 5 minutes.
Right.
And there's things that I've discussed that I've never discussed with anybody. You can just try to discuss them with somebody from the outside, but it's not the same. It's not the same as, the connection you have with somebody who kind of understands.
Yeah. Telling a story is the most primitive form of sharing information.
Sure.
And
I think there's a lot of stories out there, and there's a lot of stories people can benefit from hearing. That whole mental health thing we were discussing with understanding that no matter which side of the line you fall on, you're not the only one on the side of the line. And there's always come out stories. There's always brighter day stories. It doesn't have to be the end of the line for anybody. There's always ways to climb back, and just being able to provide that information to people with just a click of a button is it's a great opportunity.
Thank you
Sure.
for sharing.
Absolutely.
I learned some stuff about you today.
Hope they were good things.
Yeah, good things and things that explain your motives.
Sure.
I'm a big guy, a big fan of knowing somebody's motives, and it helps to know where somebody's coming from. So thanks for sharing.
No problem.
All right, well, let's get out of here.
All right, have a good one.
Yep.